Hi guys. I am ridiculously excited about today's installment of Failtober. So this is week 2 of Failtober, and today we're going to be talking about STEM ideals, and you can see a little preview of that behind me. I forgot to mute my phone, which is how I see your comments if you make any. They don't pop up for whatever reason on my screen since some algorithm change. Not that that matters, but okay, so you see some of these STEM ideals behind me, and I am going to be obviously focusing on embrace failure because it is Failtober, but I kind of want to go through a little bit of what this series is and why I think character education in STEM classes makes so much sense, and yet I haven't really seen it done much. We sort of expect students to sort of almost pick these things up through osmosis, and there is going to be a flash freebie, and I'm going to tell you when you can get this flash freebie later on in this live. So make sure that you watch it. If you have to, dip out before this ends, make sure you come back in the next 24 hours because I'm going to give you 2 chances to get some of these STEM ideals for free for just a little flash period of time. So I don't want you to miss that. Just let's go over really quickly the Failtober agenda for this month. So last week we talked about your relationship with failure and just doing something really simple like bringing in failure quotes to help sort of start to rewire or reframe your feelings about failure and to help you bring those into your classroom too, right? We're starting easy, right? We're starting with these small things and we're building up and adding some more, I wouldn't say complicated, but more meaty sort of pieces to this Failtober puzzle every single week. So today we are talking about STEM ideals and how really they equal life ideals when you really look at them. And then next week we're going to get into more about how you can actually get this going in your classroom with hands-on actual work with failure in your classroom. We're going to use Halloween STEM challenges as the foundation of that. Following week, we'll talk about how do you really handle failure in your classroom. And we'll talk a little bit about STEM challenges and lab work as well. Like, what are your reactions? What should you do? What's the actual, okay, now there's a big failure. How do we move forward with the students in a way that lets them develop this healthy relationship with failure and get all the meat out of it that we want them to, right? And then in week 5, we'll do some resource roundup. I am going to be sort of previewing some books and some articles that sort of supplement what we've been talking about throughout. And then in week 5, I will do some others that I haven't had time. Like today, I have like 2 or 3 books I'd love to show you. I'm not sure if we'll get to it. So if we don't, I will definitely come back to that in week 5. So I'm going to move this Failtober schedule out, and I want to sort of give you a foundation of where this came from for me. So I'm going to share 3 quotes with you, and I bet they're going to resonate. If you're here watching, I'm sure they will resonate with you. So facts are not science as the dictionary is not literature. Love it. Science is a way of thinking much more than it is a body of knowledge. Yes, absolutely. And we think scientific literacy flows out of how many science facts you can recite rather than how was your brain wired for thinking. And it's the brain wiring that I'm more interested in rather than the facts that come out of the curriculum or the lesson plan that's been proposed. So these 3 quotes were really sort of the guiding force, along with sort of this years-long feeling that there was something missing from particularly my science classes. Obviously, those quotes intimate that you should be doing hands-on work and a lot of inquiry-based lessons with your students, but I think it goes beyond that, and I feel like for me, the character ed piece is what was missing. So that's why I'm trying not to be obnoxiously excited about this, because I've really spent the last, I think, over a month coming up with 25 STEM ideals and then sort of figuring them out based on research of current STEM pros, legendary STEM pros. What is it about? What's that special way that their brain is wired? And then I figure you have to know what are those traits, what are those ideal ways of thinking and those ideal ways of having your brain wired. What are they? In order to figure out now how do we help our students apply that in their STEM work and really beyond. Now I know you can't see everything there, so I'm actually going to pull in another picture that you might be able to see the whole poster in this one. So I'll put that off to the side. So we have 25 STEM ideals. organized into sort of 5 categories. So basically, our STEM pros, they have these growth mindset ways of thinking. They embrace productive failure, they're persistent, they take risks, they make mistakes, and they're always learning. Then when we look at like skills and process, they create fair tests for things, they are safe and careful, organized and methodical, they analyze and ask why, and they make connections. Their guiding principles: work hard, be patient, be resourceful, be objective and unbiased, and use logic and reason. Habits of mind: stay curious, be creative, imagine and dream, be open-minded, and be skeptical. On some of these, I should say, I actually have doubles of some of these in the resources because I liked 2 different pictures, so I wanted to have them both optional. In the case of be skeptical, I have the same picture but a different wording: think for yourself. And I also have, I've made these editable within Google Slides. So we'll talk a little bit about why I used be creative versus creativity. So why I used verbs versus nouns or adjectives in some cases. We'll talk about that. Let me just finish the last row. Beyond self. So a lot of STEM pros build on prior work, whether it's theirs or another STEM pros. They communicate clearly, collaborate with peers, work with purpose, and be ethical. Now, I call these ideals because we know that STEM pros don't always succeed in all of these things, right? I can think of some cases where ethics weren't followed, where maybe data was fudged so that you could make it into a journal, or get some fame or notoriety. So I really thought a long time about whether I should call this STEM traits or STEM habits or STEM principles. And what I came to was ideals, because I wanted it to reinforce the fact that STEM pros are not always, paragons of virtue. I didn't want to set them up to be superhuman or heroic necessarily, but I did want to pull out what is the most ideal, best case, so that we had that sort of growth mindset about I'm aiming for this thing. I'm aiming for the ideal, and I might not always reach it, but I'm constantly working toward it. And that's also why I use the terminology be creative, be persistent instead of creativity and persistence, because it feels like a call to action, right? As opposed to something, it just feels a little flat to me, creativity, persistence. And even though it's just such a minor thing, I feel different when I see a poster that says be creative versus creativity. And so I wanted to bring that into the classroom, that sense of action, that sense of aiming, that sense of working toward an ideal. But like I said, I did make these posters, the full size, and these are the quarter size behind me, but they're full size as well. So we're going to be talking specifically about embracing failure and some of the ways that you can bring this into your classroom, because like I said, we're going to be building every week something just a little bit more that you can do in your classroom to sort of reinforce specifically embracing failure, because it's Failtober, but also these other ideals. I'm going to pull this off to the side because I'm getting a little dizzy seeing them both side by side in that way. I do want to tell you that when I was creating this, I had basically 3 big goals in mind for this series. The first one was I really wanted to explicitly call out, these are the ideal traits. This is the special wiring that I want my students to embody in their STEM work. But really, when you look at it, can you just imagine if you were all of these things, if you hadn't had all of these ideals and you executed them daily, wouldn't you just have a rich and full, good life? I think so. So that's why I say STEM ideals equal life ideals. So I wanted to explicitly call them out, because I think what we tend to do, or I shouldn't speak for you, I should speak for me. My tendency is, when we read about, Einstein or whatever, we might call out and talk about, he was, very creative, and he was, he marched to his own drummer, right? And we might start to call those out, but I wanted there to be a way where I could have basically everything posted, where I could have a bulletin board year round, and we could refer back to, not just when we're talking about STEM pros, because that's another thing I should explain. When I say STEM pro, I don't necessarily mean a STEM professional who makes his or her living from one of the STEM fields, although yes, it can include that. I also think of my students as STEM pros. Basically, a STEM pro to me is anyone who is actively trying to embody these ideals. That's the plan, right? So when I say STEM pro, I mean, yes, STEM professionals, I mean current, I mean legendary, and I mean my students, and I even mean myself. And I'm not just talking about STEM challenges, I am talking about science, technology, engineering, and math fields, right? Although I will say within my series, I skew a little bit towards science. So when I pull out quotes or I pull out examples, many times they're scientists. Sometimes they're mathematicians or they're coders in their technology fields, and sometimes engineers as well. But I just want to be upfront about that. A lot of my examples are scientists that we use throughout. So my goal one, explicitly call out what I really hope my students learn to embody in their STEM work. Number two, provide quotes and examples in a balanced way by gender and ethnicity so that all of my students can see their faces and imagine themselves in these fields if that's what they choose to do in their lives. And I third wanted to make this meaningful and practical for a teacher to implement because you already have so many standards. I know time is always short, so I wanted to have something where we could sort of like have this drip, 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 drip for students to sort of start to figure out what these ideals are and start to identify them in others, but also in themselves, and identify their own areas of strength and weakness and figure out where and how they can build on those strengths, and hopefully even, build up some areas that are currently weak. I feel like it's not easy to do that when you don't know what the ideals are. So that's why I wanted to call them out in this way. So let me see where I am now. Basically, I just wanted to figure out, as I was doing my research and like sort of pulling out what are the things I admire about, this story about this scientific research study or this person in history. And so I just kept a running list basically and eventually made it down to where I could get it down to a reasonable number and categorize them. Hi Cheryl, and get it into something that we could use practically. And I did that basically. I whittled things down based on what do I really want from my students. And there were some things that didn't make the cut that I sort of still feel a little sad about. Tolerate ambiguity was one of them, although I did put it in. So I have my cutting room floor posters. So some ideals that didn't quite make it. I think I have 4 of them, and what I did is I did include those in the bundle. We'll talk about that later, so that you can get them because I made them, so you might as well. Someone might enjoy them. But also what I ended up doing so that I could feel good about it is I sort of weaved some of those ideas into the other ideals in the descriptions of them. So I am going to walk you through some of the stuff that comes in the resource because, spoiler alert, the Flash freebie is one of these sets. So I'm going to walk you through the one that you can pick up if you're watching this within 24 hours of, so October 10th or part of October 11th, 2018. I'll walk you through it. Okay. So let me just see. So number one, the most important one to me, when I first started this, I knew embrace failure was going to be the number one, very first ideal. You wouldn't have to go in this order, but this was just the order that I came up with. So it's basically, it's the most important thing, I think, and I know I've said this before, if we manage to help our students develop this healthy relationship with failure, it will probably be the most important thing we ever do for them. Certainly, I think more important than any particular piece of content. I think that goes back to those quotes that we talked about at the beginning of this, particularly the Neil deGrasse Tyson one. So let me actually kind of show you how we go through, because even if you are watching this after the fact and you don't get the Flash freebie, you can get ideas as to what you can do to sort of bring these things into your classroom. So let me just show you a couple of little things that I would like to do for each of these. And okay, I can't wait anymore. I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna be giving you as the Flash freebie, and I'll show you the times later. So this is set 1. Your set 1 is going to be the Flash freebie that I tell you the times for later. Not yet. Gotta be patient. And these are the 5 ideals that are included in that. There is a second poster for take risks because I liked 2 posters, so I kept them both. And I'm going to walk you through some of what's in there. And again, if you're watching this after the fact, I'm sorry. And if you already bought this because it has been posted for a few days, I'm going to give you another option. So stay tuned. Don't be upset. Never want early adopters to be upset. I'm going to walk you through some things you can do. Even if you don't have the resource, you can still get some value from this, okay? So one of the things I did is I made those posters into quarter-size posters so that you can do things like a bigger bulletin board, or to make it more convenient for interactive notebooks for your students. And then we have pages that are, I'll walk you through some of this stuff. Basically what I do is I just do a little short description of each of the ideals, which can go on the bulletin board, or, you know, you can have your students just put it in a folder, a notebook, a binder. You can cut them up, like I said, and put them in interactive notebooks. And then each of the ideals has these mini reflection pages, and we're going to talk about exactly what's in the Embrace Failure one because this is Failtober. They each have one of those, and then we have, I have some blank pages too, because one of the things I was thinking some teachers might like to do is to make little booklets, have their students make little booklets of the different STEM ideals. So I just wanted there to be different options. So we'll talk about what's going on there. One of the things that I can't tell you how long this took. So it was really important to me that when we used examples, so these are quotes. I wanted to have quotes that were related to the sets, ideals from STEM pros. So one of the things you might be noticing throughout this month is when you see those failure quotes that are popping up every day on Facebook and Instagram, those are from everybody. I took them from actors, I took them from politicians, I took them from all over, right? I did try to balance it pretty well between male and female. But what I wanted for this series is I wanted a balance of male and female, and I wanted to try to get a good balance of different ethnicities as well. So there are 12 quotes for the growth minds. Well, each of these actually has their own set of 12 quotes, and it's balanced 6 men, 6 women, in all of them except I think Habits of Mind has 7 female quotes and 5 male quotes. But you get 12, and they're all from STEM professionals. And one of the reasons that I wanted to do that, because this is STEM ideals, so I wanted, you know, actual quotes from people in STEM fields, I thought was really important. This was much harder to find than you might think because I wanted them related to their series sets as well and balanced. So I hope you love them. I do. And I hope you appreciate it because it took a lot of time. And then I have this page here. If you're using just standalone, or you're doing a bulletin board, or you're doing binders, so they can cut out a different quote and put it on this page and do a reflection, or they can just do it within their interactive notebooks. There are a lot of different options. But one of the things I thought was kind of nice is that then as another option for another reflection day, you could have them choose any of the quote authors to learn more about, and then pull out which of these ideals, not just within the set you're on, if you have the other sets, you know, obviously a person who's in a STEM field isn't only going to be demonstrating, you know, one set of STEM ideals. They're going to have little pieces and bits from all over, and depending on the source that the student's reading, they're going to find different examples from different sets, right? One of the other things that I do in each set is I give you some, here we go. I give you some specific videos or articles that students can read. So we've got, there's a video link within the resource you're going to get for the Flash freebie that goes to an Albert Einstein video, and they're short. They're like 5 minutes. You know what I'm realizing is I didn't tell you at the beginning. When I said I wanted it to be practical for teachers to be able to use in their classrooms, these are meant to take 5 to 10 minutes. And the idea is you would cover Embrace Failure. You would be on that for an entire week. And then 1 week per ideal. And then in the 6th week, you would go back and do some culminating activities to go back and revisit all 5. So if you were going to do this whole series, you would be doing 30 weeks of STEM ideals. So it'll take you through the whole school year, basically. But only for a few minutes a day, 5 to 10 minutes a day, maybe. 10 minutes if you're doing, there are ways to break it down. You can combine activities, you can get rid of activities. I've given you more than you need. It's a great thing for a sub day too. If you need like a quick kind of lesson plan, you can sort of expand out and do like a longer set of student activities. that take a longer time. So I think it'd be actually really good for a sub to help you out with some of your sub plans as well. So in the first set, I have an Albert Einstein, I have Marie Curie, and then I have articles on Dr. Elena H. Hernandez Ramon, and actually I changed that picture, so I used this one instead, and Asia Dalton. So, and these are articles that the students would read, and then they pull out and basically, explain which STEM ideals were demonstrated, which things stood out to you about their stories. And then I have a STEM Pro bio template. So this would be if they took one of those quote authors, and then went to learn more about them, they could do that here, or they could choose their own STEM Pro. One of the things that, I do want to go through the mini reflections, because even if you don't have this, even if you don't end up with this resource, you can still do some of these things in your classroom. And I think they're really important. One of the things that I think we don't do enough of is counter some of the messages that students receive in other subject areas and just in the broader culture, right? So that's part of why we have these, like I wanted you to do these quotes about embracing failure throughout the month, because we have to start to work on that wiring. One of the things that students don't get enough opportunity to do is to, I think, be skeptical and to question, particularly question authority, which I know can be scary for us as teachers to sort of encourage that, but I think it's really necessary. And I think there are respectful ways to do it, and I think students really respond well to it when they're given the opportunity. And they really do need practice, like flexing that muscle. So I'm going to walk you through some of the ways that I try to get them engaging with the different ideals, and just really thinking critically about what they think and what they believe. I think that isn't done enough in general, and I think science classes in particular are a really good place to do it. I think English language arts as well, but we're talking about STEM today. So first little reflection on all of the ideals is it will show them a little, I'm going to cover up my little drawing because it's terrible. So I put the little image of the poster there, and then there's a little, I'll just show you, I'm just embarrassed. Okay. And then there's a little box, and the question says, how does the image, meaning the poster image, relate to the STEM ideal? Sketch or list ideas for the other images that would work well for the ideal. So I want them engaging and thinking about, why was that picture chosen? And do they even think it was a good idea? Do they think that was a good picture for it? What are some other things that might work well? So that gets their brain fired up about thinking about, well, what are the concepts? And then how do you visually show that concept? Embracing failure can be a little bit tricky, right? Because it's sort of a nebulous idea, and a lot of these ideals are. So the little box is meant to give them an option to sketch out a poster, or if they're like me and they don't draw well, there are also lines down here, and they could even write words in the box. And then this becomes one of the options, later down the line, if maybe you have early finishers or you have a little bit more time to spend on ideals, you could have the students actually create these posters. Or if they're like me, they might want to go in and use, maybe a graphic design type option, make it in Canva or PowerPoint or something like that, so that their artistic limitations don't make an ugly poster, right? The next one is, what does it mean to embrace failure, and what does it not mean? I think that's a really important piece, but I'll keep going. Why do you think that is an important trait for a STEM pro? Is it important for others? So I'm trying to get them thinking about, particularly with this one, with embrace failure. I think there's some danger in students getting the wrong message, that we're just like, yay, you got an F. I mean, obviously most kids are not going to make that jump, and they're going to understand what you mean, but it's always a good idea to clarify, just to be careful, just to be safe that the right message is getting across. To this point, I actually posted yesterday in the Facebook group, Stellar STEM with Feel Good Teaching, an article that was about, the picture of it, if you're looking for it later, is like, it's a cheerleader, and it's talking about how, it's basically a negative take on our fascination with failure. And it's, I think it's a little silly when you read through it, but it's a good conversation starter. And to this point, what does it mean to embrace failure, and what does it not mean? Well, it doesn't mean to just say, oh, I failed and yay, that's great, and move on with your life. It's about, I failed. That's not a huge deal, but what can I learn from it? What can I take from it? How can I move forward from here? And you actually take something from it and turn it into something positive, right? So just that little second question of what does it not mean, I think is really important for a lot of these ideals. I don't know if it's in all of them, but it's in some of them. And in some of these sets, the questions will vary on these mini reflections, just because some of, within the sets, they just make more sense with different questions. So you'll see different things. You'll be able to see things in the previews and all of that too. But this one you're getting for free soon. Okay, and then this one does have quite a few questions on it. So one of the things I did is I included some templates that are just the lines and just blank, so that if you wanted to, you could copy them back to back. You could also, just like I said, have them do that in their interactive notebooks. Then they could just keep going on the paper as well. So try to give you lots of different options for lots of ways you can use this. And the other thing is, these are editable as well. Not every page, but many of the pages are editable in Google Slides. So what you could do on this one, if you didn't like all the questions, you could just take some of them out or change it around however you like. Or another option is to let students choose which of the questions sort of resonate with them and which ones they want to answer. Next, reflection. And again, if you're not using the resource, you can still talk through this and have students do these things in their notebooks as well. Although resource sure does make it easier, doesn't it? Saves you time. Okay, next one. Describe a time you saw or read or heard about someone embrace failure. What did you think of it at the time? Do you feel any differently now? Why do you think you remember it? I will say the same thing about this. It has a few questions, so you want to have extra room to write, or have students choose which ones they want to answer, or you can go in and actually edit this and change it how you like. But I think this one is good because a lot of times, when you see somebody fail, I would expect to see on this one from students saying something about that they laughed at somebody, but maybe now they might remember it differently, or they might think of it in a different way because the person tried. So there's something good about that, right? And they might even think not to laugh in the future because that doesn't feel good for a person. Or they might remember it because it was inspiring. I know there are many stories of people, and this doesn't have to just be in STEM. When students are remembering these, thinking about a time they saw someone embrace failure and use it to move forward, it might just be, might be something they saw in a movie or on a TV show, and it could just be about anything in life. But I think thinking about why you remember it is kind of important. For me, when I remember that I'm inspired by something, it can help me be brave enough to embrace failure in the future. So I like that question. But again, you can edit it if you don't. And then share an example of a time you demonstrated this ideal in your life, or a time when you might have, if you could get a do-over, or a time, I think I might have changed that, a time it would have been a good choice or something like that. So that even if they maybe they can't think of an example where they did embrace failure, they might be able to think of an example where it really would have been a good choice moving forward. So those are some of the ways I have the students start to engage with the ideals and think about them and what they mean to them. And the other ways are with the quotes and with our examples of STEM pros, current and legendary. And one thing I actually really like as well, this sort of brings into Bloom's judgment level, Bloom's taxonomy. So there are two different ranking activities here. And this says, so the top one says, rank the ideals from most important to least important in your opinion. So just by the set. So they have to go through and decide of embrace failure, be persistent, make mistakes, always be learning, and take risks. Which of those is the most important in their opinion? And then on the lines to the side, they sort of justify it or explain their reasoning. Again, this is about getting students, giving them permission to go through and think for themselves. And I think this would be a hard thing for me to do, to rate them, to rank them. but I also think it gets me thinking about, do I actually agree that I think these are all important? And I do want my students thinking that way. I do want them not to always just accept the thing that I'm telling them as their teacher, because I don't want them in their adult lives to just accept the thing, the position, the authority position tells them is true without actively engaging their own thought process to see if they agree with it or not, to see if it's grounded in fact, if it's grounded in reality. And, part of that is because that's what I want for them as adults. And part of that is because I'm going to make mistakes sometimes. And I don't want them thinking that the person, me, or anyone else in authority is perfect 100% of the time. I want them to start to rely on themselves and their own power of thinking and their own thought processes. And I think even though these things are sort of simple, I think that, again, this is a drip, 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 drip. A little bit at a time, every day, every week, I think goes a really long way toward the rewiring to help students not just embrace productive failure, but also all of these STEM ideals, which again will serve them very well in their regular lives. The next ranking activity is give yourself it's not a ranking, but give yourself a personal score for how well you demonstrate each STEM ideal. So use a scale of 1 to 5. 1 is a weakness, 5 is a strength. And on the lines, tell one ideal you think would be good to work on and what you could do to practice it. So I like that because they can, down the line, if they think they're really great at everything, they can give themselves 5s. They don't have to rank like which one am I best at. They can look at each one individually, and then they can choose which one. Hopefully, now if they do them in order, hopefully they've ranked them, decided what they think is really important, and then when they go down to the next one, they might realize, oh, this thing that I thought was most important, I'm really only like a 3 out of 5 on. Maybe that's something I could work on, and what are some things I could do to practice it? Again, I think that they're simple. They won't take a ton of time to do, but I think it goes a long way just sort of to explicitly call these things out as important and give them a little bit of time every day or at least every week. You don't have to do these things every single day. I did give you everything I've shown you here, and then there are other pieces of it, and there's, 2 more things I think I want to show you on that. Okay. I also did, because I keep finding things that I really love, and rather than wait until I can make them formally pretty and add them to the resource, which will take such a long time to happen that I worry that you won't get to see it in time. What I've done is I've created a website that I link in the resource that will give you extra resources. So there will be websites, there are book recommendations, more quotes, articles, videos that have STEM Pro bios and some specific examples of sometimes of different labs or different research studies or things like that. They're all pretty short. Most of the time I try to keep it in the 5-minute range for the videos. I think I might have put one in the other day that was 10 minutes. But basically I'm going to be adding to this periodically, and you can pull from these. And part of the reason I wanted to make it one big website for all of the STEM ideals is, like I said earlier, when you're reading about, if you're doing a picture book, which I actually really still like to do with middle school. I still really like, and they like picture books still. Everybody does. I love this one. It's really good. And this one works really well for the first set, but it really does work very well for pretty much every other one as well, because you can pull out in one person, in one STEM Pro, many of the ideals. So I thought it made more sense to me to make the website, because I can get you the information faster and the resources faster that way, but also because they really do, many of them do apply to many different areas, many different categories of the STEM ideals. So that's one of the recommendations that I have on that website, and more. And then this way, when I find things, I can just add them quickly. And some of them I add with notes, and some of them I'm just adding without notes. But I'll go back and try to keep it as organized as I can to make it really easy for you to find exactly what you want. But I think that growing hub of information is going to be really helpful as well. And then one other thing I thought was a good idea to do is to create little awards for each set. So each set will have little half-page awards, and these are editable as well. And there are nomination slips, but I don't have those printed right now. So the students can actually nominate each other for different awards, or you can make copies of these and let students give awards to each other. Where's my Embrace Failure? Here's my Embrace Failure one. So each of these have that. So I think it's just a really sweet, to me, it's the missing piece. It's what I've been missing in my classrooms, is just this character education that helps students understand the character that's special and specific to the STEM fields, and particularly in science, I believe. So I hope that you guys are going to love it as much as I do. And I would love to get some feedback from you as well, because you're going to get some freebies soon. Okay, so let me tell you what I'm going to do for the Flash freebie. And if you already bought it, I'm going to tell you what to do as well, because I know some of you have. Okay, is there anything else I want to show you on that? Let me just make sure I did everything I was supposed to do. Failure article I talked about. Okay, so here is what we're going to do. I want you to either pick up the growth mindset. This is going to be for free, and I'm going to do this from 5:45. So right now it's 5:36. So in 9 minutes, I'm going to set this for free in my store for 1 hour, 5:45 to 6:45 Pacific. And then I'm also going to do it because I know some of you are in like Australia right now and you don't watch it like in the middle of the night. So I'm also going to set this for free tomorrow, but I'm going to do one more thing because I want you to also, I know some of you will want to get the bundle. So I was thinking about that. How do we make that work for you? Okay, so the bundle has everything. So usually what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the bundle and I'm going to discount it so that each individual set at this point in time, if you're watching this after the fact, it might be a different price. But these are $5 each, and then the bundle is discounted at $15. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the Growth Mindset bundle to free for an hour, and I'm going to set the bundle to $10. So I'm going to take another $5 off. I recommend the bundle, but do what you want to do. It will never be this cheap again, except for the 1 hour. I'm going to do it tomorrow as well, so that my friends in Australia and other time zones can also not miss out on this. So I'm going to do today 5:45 to 6:45, and I'm going to do tomorrow, October 11th, I'm going to do 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., which I know is still in the middle of the night for some of you guys, so I apologize for that. Well, maybe I should do it at a different time. I don't know what the time zones are, though, so that's not going to help much. I'm going to do it from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. If you're in Australia and that's just untenable for you, just send me an email, okay? We'll figure it out. And this is also what I want you to do if you've already bought the Growth Mindset or the bundle. If you've already bought one of those in the last couple of days, email me and before the end of the day tomorrow, before October 11th ends, email me and we'll work something out, okay? So if you're in Australia, time zones don't work, whatever. If you need to call me, call me. Not call me. Write me. My email is Kerry, Kerry, at feelgoodteaching.com. You can also just reach out directly. You can direct message me on Facebook as well. That might be easier. Okay, so I think that's it. I don't see any questions. Oh, here, Kerry, is it on TPT or Feel Good? Angie, it's on TPT, and I will drop the link in here as soon as I get off here. I will drop the links in, and then give me until 5:45 because I need to actually go in and set them for the discount and for free. And I think that's everything. And then next week we're going to talk about actually creating these opportunities for students to fail in class so that we can really actually truly practice what it means to embrace failure, and some of these other ideals as well. So as I said, every week during Failtober, we're going to build up a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. And of course, you're going to see those quotes coming every single day of the month. And if you want to know more about the whole month of Failtober, you can go to the website, the blog post. It's bit.ly/Failtober, and that's all lowercase. And if you can't find something that you're looking for, just, reach out and let me know. And Cheryl, you're welcome. I'm so excited. And if you guys are using this in your classroom, if you have any pictures or whatever, I'd love to see how you're using it. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If there are suggestions you have, things that would make make things better for you, or you just want to share your ideas, please do that too. So I'm going to jump off so I have time to set everything to free and drop in the links. And I will see you next week, same time. And I'm also going to do another flash freebie next week for something different. So make sure you're tuning in and you're watching live, or at least within the 24-hour period, okay? All right. Whew, that's it. Have a great week, guys. I will see you next time. Bye.